Hello, I'm Nima Rajan. Physical distancing protocols have been built into today's special ramp ceremony at CFB Trenton to honor the 6 members of a helicopter crew that were killed in a crash off Greece. The remains of Sub-Lieutenant Abigail Cowbro are being repatriated, and the crew members whose remains were not recovered will also be represented. The Ontario government is urging people to watch the procession down the Highway of Heroes to Toronto from home rather than lining the route to pay their respects. Meanwhile, the country's chief public health officer says to date, over 970,000 people have been tested for COVID-19 in Canada. Dr. Theresa Tam says about 6% of those tests were positive. The number of tests being carried out in Canada are of increased importance as provinces begin to slowly reopen their economies in tandem with increased COVID-19 surveillance. Meanwhile, the House of Commons hosted a reduced number of MPs today in the latest once-a-week COVID-19 sitting. The semi-regular sessions are a chance for the opposition parties to keep a close eye on the governing Liberals' pandemic response plans. Yesterday's agriculture aid package, the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit, and future assistance for seniors were all expected to be topics of discussion. Ottawa is making another multi-million-dollar investment into the development of the F35 stealth fighter jet, despite no guarantee that it will buy the aircraft. Canada made the annual F-35 payment to the U.S. military last week, spending $70.1 million U.S. to remain one of 9 partner countries in the project. Each partner is required to cover a portion of the plane's multi-billion-dollar development costs in order to stay at the table. Newfoundland and Labrador are tightening up enforcement of public health orders at entry points to the province. Yesterday, the government introduced new legislation allowing peace officers to stop individuals and motor vehicles and return them to a point of entry. Premier Dwight Ball says the idea is to make sure those who are coming into the province are essential workers. Meanwhile, British Columbia's health minister is urging people whose surgeries have been delayed to go to an emergency room if their condition has worsened during the pandemic. Adrian Dix says there has been a recent uptick in ER visits following a decline, but anyone who needs medical help shouldn't hesitate to get it. The province has delayed thousands of surgeries to create space for COVID-19 patients in case of a surge in cases. Ontario's premier says he had had some discussions about Toronto playing a role in the reopening of the National Hockey League season. Doug Ford says he has spoken with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment about the possibility, but noted that the talks were in the early stages. He promised to provide an update in the future. The NHL paused its season because of concerns over COVID-19 in March. Police in Lethbridge, Alberta are being investigated after a restaurant worker in a stormtrooper costume was forced to the ground and ended up with a bloody nose. Brad Whalen, the owner of the Coco Vanilla Galactic Cantina restaurant, says the 19-year-old woman was wearing the costume and holding a plastic toy blaster to promote his themed restaurant for Star Wars Day. He says the police went overboard. Police say while the person dropped the weapon, she didn't initially comply with police directions. Well, moving to the U.S. now, where the Supreme Court's third day of hearing arguments by telephone will present a case involving the Affordable Care Act. The justices are hearing a dispute about Trump administration rules that would allow more employers who cite a religious or moral objection to opt out of providing no-cost birth control to women. Wednesday's second argument is a free speech case related to unwanted telemarketing calls. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, the High Court has been hearing arguments by phone with no live audio available for the first time. The European Union has released its first official forecast of the damage the COVID-19 pandemic is inflicting on the bloc's economy. The EU is predicting a recession of historic proportions this year as the bloc's economy shrinks by an estimated 7.5%. More than 1.1 million people have contracted the virus across Europe, and more than 137,000 have died. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Boris Johnson bitterly regrets the coronavirus epidemic raging in Britain's nursing homes. The UK's confirmed death toll stands at 29,427, the highest in Europe. While the number of deaths in hospitals is falling, deaths in nursing homes have not shown the same decline. Prime Minister Johnson told lawmakers in the House of Commons that there will be a time to look at what decisions we took and whether we could have taken different decisions. Russia has reported more than 10,500 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday, bringing the national total to over 165,000, including 1,500 deaths. The country's health officials have been reporting more than 10,000 new cases for the fourth day in a row. Russia has been in lockdown since late March, with the vast majority of regions requiring residents to stay at home and suspending operation of most businesses. Last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin extended the lockdown until May 11th. A new report says the fight against tuberculosis could be set back by more than 5 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic, risking an additional 1.4 million TB deaths and 6.3 million infections by 2025. The respiratory illness infects more than 10 million people annually. The Stop TB partnership says lockdowns affecting poor people who cannot practice social distancing in their homes mean higher risk of TB transmission, while restricted movements disrupt treatment. Well, the Save Elephant Foundation in northern Thailand has launched a project to help elephants after their owners have lost their jobs at elephant parks because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The foundation is working to have the animals return to their homes and natural habitats where they won't be so dependent on handouts. As many as 2,000 elephants at venues across Thailand are at risk of starving because their owners cannot pay for the 300 kilos of grass and vegetables that each elephant eats per day. Well, that'll do it for today's news update. I'm Nima Rajan. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.